Hi everyone, this is Renee from Meadowlark Mystic, and I am doing part 2 of my non-Rider-Waite-Smith tarot decks. I finished the other video and I finally uploaded it, and when I was listing the decks in the description box, I realized I had left out a lot of my non-Rider-Waite-Smith decks that I really love, so I decided to do a part 2 to that video. So let's just get started. I have a lot of non-Rider-Waite decks, non-Rider-Waite-Smith decks, because I find sometimes the Rider-Waite-Smith imagery to be not as neutral as I'd like it, and I've talked about that a lot on my channel, so I don't need to go into it anymore. But so I actually now, when I purchase decks, I do look for decks that do not adhere as tightly to the Rider-Waite-Smith imagery, and take a more maybe imaginative or expansive view of some of the cards. I've been really thinking a lot about the sword suit, especially since I watched Tarot Alchemist's Heart Chakra series. Heart Chakra video. She's doing a chakra series, which is really great. So if you haven't checked that out, definitely look for Tarot Alchemist and her chakra series. In any case, you know, when I deconstruct tarot decks, I look at the elemental features of each suit. So we've got the wands and the cups and the pentacles and the swords, and for me, each one of those signify an element. So the wands would be spirit and fire, and the cups would be water and emotion, and the swords would be the mind and air, and then the pentacles would be earth and the body and matter and physicality. And that all makes sense to my mind. I guess I like things balanced and logical. The Emperor is my birth card. But when you look at the imagery of the Rider-Waite-Smith for the swords suit, and even some of the other ones, but let's just focus on the sword suit, it's not strictly, it doesn't strictly keep to the mind. So there's a lot of bleed over into the emotional life of a person when the swords are in play. So anyway, I'm kind of getting off on a tangent. So I just wanted to say that that's one of the reasons that I find Rider-Waite-Smith decks so limiting, even though I really do appreciate them. So the first non-Rider-Waite-Smith deck I wanted to talk about is the, and I never know which way I'm going to do this, this is the Animal Wisdom. And the reason that I like this deck is because it uses images to speak to an experience that we're all familiar with, but in a slightly different way. And she has renamed, so the tower is the quickener. You know, the Four of Branches. There is a lot of overlap, and there are a few humans in this deck. What I really appreciate is, I really like the wands, and I wonder if I'll get any wands. I didn't really want this deck for a long time because I thought it was kind of it had kind of a children's book illustration feel to it that, you know, I have nothing against children's books, but I didn't think it would speak to me, but it really has. You know, this is a good example, the Five of Feathers. These birds maybe want this, and this blue jay is taking it, but it doesn't have kind of the human overlay, which I appreciate, or the Eight of Feathers. So this albatross is obviously free, and maybe this albatross is showing this one that the inherent structure of the Eight of Swords, so the structures of the mind that create a lot of power, can be, you know, you can rise above them. Yeah, I really love this deck. Okay, so that is the Animal Wisdom Tarot. Oops, of course I bumped the camera. And the next one is my beloved Tarot of the Four Elements. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I've added color to this deck, and I saw that Lena Fire Transformation had trimmed hers, and it looks so amazing, so I might trim it too. So this is kind of a pip deck, right? So this is the Three of Earth, so the Three of Pentacles. The quartz are really interesting in this. This is the Eight of Fire, and I really feel like you get a sense of the power and the structure of the Eight in the fire suit with this card. And so I really appreciate this deck, how it adheres to numerology and also elemental associations in a really new way. It depicts it in a way that I really like. So that would be the Four of Fire. And there is like the pinnacle of an experience, and then kind of a celebration. So this is a really great deck, the Tarot of the Four Elements, for another non-Rider-Waite. This is the deck, this is the reason that I did this video. So this is the Gaian Tarot, and it is non-Rider-Waite for sure. So this is the Ten of Fire. So you have like a forest fire, the Guardian of Earth. The quartz are very similar to Rider-Waite. I mean, their depictions are different. Oops. But, you know, it's easy to figure it out. But some of the, that's a major. Some of the, that's a major too. Like, okay, so this is Ten of Air. So in the Rider-Waite Smith, this is the figure that is covered in swords on the ground. And in this, I get the feeling of something completing and moving forward, but there isn't that intensity of anguish and despair face down, which is more difficult to have a neutral interpretation. So I really appreciate the Gaian Tarot for its more neutral and also inclusive depictions. That was the Empress, Magician. I really like this deck for many reasons. There's an inclusion of all different ages and races. So this is another like Ten of Earth, right? So this shows an example of, you know, an elder walking off into the forest and the regeneration of the forest. So there's obviously been, you know, trees have fallen here and or been cut down, but things are beginning to sprout again. So that speaks to the completion of the 10 in the Earth suit, which is kind of, you know, legacy or a continuation of that cycle, but it'll be in a new form. So that's the Gaian Tarot. I really love it, and it's definitely non-Rider-Waite Smith in its interpretation, but I like the numerology that it uses. The next deck, which is non-Rider-Waite, oops, I've got decks all over the place, I know I'm going to drop them, this is the Animal Wise by Ted Andrews. It's got some really dark, the photographs are really dark, so it's going to be hard for my camera to pick them up, but like this is the Nine of Fire. So the Nine of Wands, it's the Gila monster, maintain control and beliefs. I actually like the keywords on this deck, and I think it's because the sword suit remains more neutral. So the Eight of Winged Ones, or air, or swords, that's the grackle, and it's free emotions and anxieties. This is a really great example of why I like this deck. So this is the Three of Swords, and it's the rose-breasted grosbeak, healing of the heart. So I have no problem with the heart coming into the sword suit, but I do have a problem when it's simply stated as heartbreak or sorrow, because there is the chance of healing, and I'd like that to be noted. Like this is the Devil, the Raven, shape-shifting, light and dark. So there's a lot of room to find places of healing in this deck, and places of, okay, well, what do I need to work on, which I really enjoy. So that is the Animal Wise. The next deck I wanted to talk about briefly is the Dark Goddess Tarot by Prince, and this deck is, I actually can't hold it that close. This is definitely non-Rider-Waite. So Athena is the Two of Air, the Ace of Air is Nemesis. You know, the little white book that goes with this is really tiny, but it's enough. It's amazing how she can be so succinct. The Nine of Water, Lady of the Lake, the World, Kotlaku, Babo is a Siren of Earth. Sibella is the Hierophant. 7 of Earth, Ereshkigal. Thyone is the 10 of Fire. Lilith is the Siren of Air. This is a great deck. Laverna, Sonokwa. Hanged One is Tiamat. 8 of Air is Crow Mother. I like how this deck is just Kalik, 8 of Earth. I like how this deck is extremely empowering. So every single card has a lesson. Every single card has a way forward, which of course you could argue that the Rider-Waite Smith is like that as well. But I just find the imagery somewhat limiting. Or maybe it just doesn't speak to my, my mind the way it does to some people. So this is the Good Tarot, and it is also non-Rider-Waite. This is the World. This is one of the reasons that I got this deck. So this is, you know, the 9 of Air. I've actually talked about this card. I like how the interpretations are more open. The 5 of Earth, you know, typically this are the 2 people outside the church, you know, not knowing that they are connected. Whereas this depiction gives me more room to work with. You've got the stability of the 4 on the left, and then you've got something new coming in on the right with a larger coin, and also kind of this element coming in this way. So for me, the 5s are about change and challenge, and so this would be asking this person or querent to think about changes that can be made in their physical body or in their physical environment. So anyway, that's just some of the way that I use this deck to read. Like I've said, there are things about this deck that I don't love, but I really do love how they use non-traditional imagery. And, you know, this is another Empress, and she's not pregnant, so that's, for me, that's important. Justice, 2 of Earth. Magician, who looks like Santa Claus. Yeah, I like this deck. And I enjoy, like, so this is the 3 of Air. We've got a little bit of a sense of loss. So I heard somebody talk about how in their deck, I think it was Rose from Dance of the Soul Tarot was talking about the Minoan Tarot, and I think that's Ellen Lorenzi Prince as well, and I think she's talking about how the 3s are for longing, and that's totally fine with me. Like, I can totally work with longing, but not so much with the heart being pierced. So that's the Good Tarot, or a non-Rider-Waite deck. And then the next one is I have the Little Monsters Tarot. This is definitely a non-Rider-Waite. It's got a quirky, unique sense of the depictions of the cards, which, like, even for this. So this is a good example. I'm always like, why is the heart always pierced? But there's a sense that this is not, that this is a costume and that it's not really going through. And this person is like putting on a performance, which I like. And this is a beautiful death. I have thought long and hard about putting color on these cards, which I haven't decided. I love this High Priestess. I haven't decided if I'm going to do that. This is a tiny little deck, so I have really small hands, and it's small. I really love this deck. It's from Etsy. It's the same person who did the Efflorescent Tarot, which I also love and I don't have. Another deck which I really love is the Japaridze Tarot. It is also non-Rider-Waite in terms of its depictions. I just heard that it went out of print, which is really sad because it is an absolutely exquisite deck. This is the 8 of Tides, 7 of Fire. I love this depiction of the 7. This is one of my favorite 10 of Swords or 10 of Winds. I love it so much. It's just a bunch of bats in a tree. This is a card that a lot of people really hate in this deck. And this is the Emperor card. And like I said, the Emperor is my birth card. So it's an important card to me. But I actually like this depiction. Sometimes cards, like with the Ten of Swords and the Rider-Waite-Smith, sometimes cards will depict the shadow aspect of a card. And so you can see in this Emperor, which the artist has named War, the shadow power aspect of the Emperor. So there's a lot of structure here. There's a lot going on. These figures have decided to, go to war. And it's a little unclear who they're fighting, because these figures up at the top, they look to be dead. They look to be spirits who have already passed on. So what exactly they're fighting against is kind of up for debate. But with the Emperor card, there's always the danger of adhering so strongly to a plan, to a structure, that you lose all sight of the sanctity of life. So I actually like it, but a lot of people hate it. That's the Two of Cups. This is the Nine of Wands, or the Nine of Swords. I really love this because it's like a dreamscape and she's escaping from a nightmare. So I really like that. Two of Gardens. I love all the aces in this deck. This is the Ace of Water. And I love this Eight of Fire. So you've got all this structure and power building, and it's about to blow its top. So for the eights and for my readings of the eights, that's just perfect. That's the Japaridze Tarot. Then we have the decidedly non-Rider-Waite Voyager. I've talked about this deck a lot on my channel. Oh, this is all going to be in order because I'm studying numerology and like breaking it down. So the Ace of Wands, the Two of Wands, the Three of Wands. I love this depiction of the Three of Wands. And, sometimes I remember the keywords. So the keywords for this, which I cut off, is compassion, which is a really interesting way of interpreting creative inspiration, like creative fire. So the Three of Wands, the Four of Wands, the Fives. So I really love this deck. It's another non-Rider-Waite. I've trimmed it, and then I trimmed it again and took the keywords off. Let's see. I think that, yes, there are still some more non-Rider-Waite decks that I have, but those are the ones that when I looked at my part 1 of the video, which I didn't know was part 1 at the time, I thought, dang it, I really forgot those. So I just wanted to include those, and that will be all for me. I hope you're doing well. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.